All right, let's dive into this. Learning English, right?
Mm,
I've got to say, this guide is already grabbing my attention. It's like straight to the point. No fancy jargon,
yeah, it really cuts to the chase.
which I appreciate. So our mission here, for anyone tuning in, is to figure out the best ways to learn English. Maybe even uncover some little secrets, eh?
Some tricks of the trade.
Exactly. And I'm sensing, just from skimming this, that this guide is all about keeping it simple.
You're right on the money. It all starts with vocabulary, the core, the foundation.
It's like building a house, right? You got to have strong bricks. So where do we find these bricks, these essential words?
Well, the guide suggests starting with words you'll use every single day. Think about it. Family, food, basic actions.
Words you can't avoid.
Exactly. Master those early on, and you've got a solid base.
Makes total sense. But is it just a matter of flipping through a dictionary?
Not quite. The guide's all about active learning, getting involved.
So ditch the passive reading, huh?
Exactly. Think flashcards, making your own word lists, that kind of thing. And here's a gem. Use a good old-fashioned notebook.
A notebook.
Yeah.
Like pen and paper.
Yep. Jot down new words. Practice using them in sentences.
There's something about writing things down by hand. It sticks with you.
It's true. Makes you slow down, think about those words. Plus, you can track your progress.
Like a little language journal.
Hey.
Speaking of progress, I'm guessing listening skills are next.
Spot on. Gotta train those ears to understand spoken English.
So we've got the bricks. Now we need to hear them being used. What's the secret weapon?
This is where it gets fun. The guide recommends children's shows.
Children's shows, like cartoons.
Think Peppa Pig, Dora the Explorer, that kind of thing. Simple language, clear pronunciation.
Okay, I can see that, like a gentle introduction. But is there a risk of getting stuck with, like, baby talk?
Good point, and the guide addresses that. It's a starting point, not the end goal.
So level up as you go. Gotcha.
Exactly. Subtitles can be a great help, too, as you transition to more complex shows. It's all about finding that sweet spot. Challenging, but not overwhelming.
Yeah, I'd rather ease into it than get thrown into Shakespeare right off the bat. Speaking of pushing boundaries, what about speaking itself? That's got to be key, right?
Absolutely crucial. The guide's big on speaking from day one, mistakes and all.
Yeah, that's always the advice, isn't it? But it's easier said than done.
Okay.
Any practical tips for getting over that fear of speaking, especially when you're just starting out?
They suggest starting small. Don't aim for perfection right away. Just focus on getting your message across.
So baby steps.
Exactly. Talk to yourself, describe what you see, narrate your day, like you're doing a voiceover.
Everyday life is a speaking practice session. I like it. Does the guide mention any tools or resources for this?
They're big fans of language learning apps, Duolingo, HelloTalk, those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, those are popular.
They give you interactive exercises, pronunciation feedback, even chances to chat with native speakers.
It's like having a language buddy in your pocket. But let's not forget about reading. That's got to be huge for learning a language, right?
Oh, absolutely. The guide stresses that reading is key for unlocking grammar and sentence structure. They suggest starting with children's books or short stories again. Simple stuff.
Gradual progression. I'm seeing a pattern here.
Makes sense, right? Build up that confidence. They even talk about reading everyday signs and labels.
Oh, I like that. It's like a little treasure hunt for English words in your everyday life.
Exactly. Learning doesn't have to be confined to textbooks.
Make it a part of your world.
Yeah.
And then, of course, comes the writing, the dreaded writing.
Yeah, but think of it this way. You've built your vocabulary, you're understanding structure. Now it's time to express yourself.
True. There's something satisfying about putting your thoughts into words, even if they're a little jumbled at first.
Exactly. And the guide suggests something simple but powerful. Keeping a journal.
A journal. So just write about my day.
Exactly. Practice those sentences, experiment with vocabulary, see your progress over time.
I can see that. Does the guide get into any specific grammar tips for us beginner writers?
They keep it focused on the basics, like subject-verb agreement, verb tenses. For example, they explain when to use is versus are.
Ah, those little things that can trip you up.
Right. It's all about mastering those building blocks before you tackle more complex stuff.
Building blocks, there's that metaphor again. Okay, I'm on board with that approach. But you know what always throws me off? Pronunciation. So many sounds.
Pronunciation is crucial. You're absolutely right. It's what makes you clear and understandable.
Sometimes I feel like I've got the grammar and words down, but then I open my mouth, it all falls apart.
That's a common feeling. The guide recommends a few things. First, listen. Movies, music, podcasts, Anything with a native speaker.
Train your ear, basically.
Exactly. Get used to the sounds. But then comes the fun part.
Mhm.
Tongue twisters.
Tongue twisters, seriously.
Whoa, yeah. It's like a workout for your mouth muscles.
I can feel my tongue getting tied just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, there's something oddly satisfying about mastering a tongue twister. It's like a little victory.
Exactly. It's those small wins that keep you motivated. And speaking of motivation, let's talk about practice. Because consistency is key, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not about cramming, it's about making it a habit. What kind of practice routine does this guide suggest?
They've got a daily plan that's actually pretty manageable. Just 15 minutes in the morning for vocabulary review and another 15 in the evening for speaking practice.
Half an hour a day, that's doable.
Right, and they suggest making it fun. Word games, music, even English comic books.
Anything to keep it engaging.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you. But let's be real, even with the best plan, there are going to be challenges.
Yeah, language learning isn't a walk in the park. What kind of roadblocks does this guide address?
The usual suspects: fear of making mistakes, forgetting words, that feeling of being overwhelmed. But they frame it all as opportunities for growth.
So don't beat yourself up.
Exactly. See those challenges as stepping stones. They've got specific tips, too. For forgetting words, spaced repetition, flashcards. For feeling overwhelmed, break down those grammar rules into smaller chunks.
Bite-sized learning. Makes sense.
Right. And when you start doubting yourself, remember why you're doing this. Celebrate the small wins.
Keep the big picture in mind. I like it. This has been so helpful already.
Me too. This guide is like a treasure map for learning English.
And we're just getting started. In the next part, we're going to level up, talk about some advanced strategies, think authentic materials, immersion, the real deal.
Can't wait. We're going to uncover even more secrets hiding in this guide and help you all become confident English speakers.
So stick around, everyone. We'll be back soon to continue this deep dive into the world of English learning. Back again.
Deep dive into learning English continues. We were getting into some good stuff before the break, talking about building those foundations. But now I'm thinking, how do we go from beginner to, actually fluent? What's the next level? Well, the guide's got us covered. It's all about taking a leap into authentic English content.
Authentic content. Sounds kind of fancy.
It's not as intimidating as it sounds. Think news articles, podcasts, even movies and TV shows.
Oh, so like real-world stuff, not just textbook examples.
Exactly. And here's the key. Pick stuff you're actually interested in.
Makes sense. If I'm going to spend time learning, might as well be something I enjoy.
Right. It's got to hold your attention. And the beauty of authentic content is it exposes you to, the natural flow of English.
So you're picking up on slang, accents, all that.
All of it. Formal, informal, you get a taste of everything.
It's like you're dropped right into an English-speaking country, even if you're just on your couch.
Exactly. But of course, it can be a bit overwhelming at first. So the guide suggests starting with content that's slightly above your current level. Challenging, but not totally lost.
Don't want to get discouraged right off the bat.
Right? And don't be afraid to use those subtitles.
Oh, subtitles are my best friend.
They're a great tool, especially at the beginning. Help you catch those words you might miss otherwise.
And eventually, the goal is to not need them. Right.
Exactly. But it's a gradual process. The guide also reminds us to actually engage with the content. Don't just passively watch or listen. Take notes, look up new words.
Make it interactive.
Exactly. Turn it into an active learning experience. And speaking of active learning, we got to talk about immersion.
Immersion, yeah. That's like the dream, right? Living in an English-speaking country.
The guide definitely emphasizes that. It's where real fluency and confidence often come from. But it's not always possible.
Sadly, not everyone can just pack up and move abroad.
Right. So they suggest getting creative. Find language exchange partners online, join conversation groups.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right, or even volunteer with organizations where you have to use English.
Get yourself out there. Force yourself to practice. I like that.
It's about seeking out those real-world situations. And in those moments, that's where the magic happens. You suddenly understand something, or you're able to actually hold a conversation.
Those aha moments.
Right.
They keep you going.
Exactly. Fuel for the language learning fire. And speaking of pushing forward, the guide talks about a big concern for a lot of learners: fluency and confidence.
Ah, yeah. Those are the goals, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they can feel so far away, especially when you're still messing up verb tenses.
It's a process. And the guide makes a really good point. Fluency isn't about being perfect.
so I don't have to sound like a native speaker.
Not at all. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and effectively. Mistakes are allowed.
That takes some pressure off.
Right, and confidence comes with practice. The more you use English in real situations, the more comfortable you'll feel.
It's like anything you learn, right? Riding a bike, playing an instrument. At first it's awkward, but you keep at it.
Perfect analogy, and eventually you're cruising along not even thinking about it. That's the goal with English, too. Find that balance of grammar, vocabulary, listening, speaking.
And sprinkle in some confidence. This deep dive has been so enlightening. Seriously, this guide is a gem.
I agree. It's like they've laid out a map to fluency.
But we're not at the finish line yet. In our final part, we're going to get even more practical. Talk about how to fit all this into your everyday life.
We'll talk goals, overcoming those challenges, and ultimately becoming those confident speakers we all want to be.
So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to wrap up this deep dive into learning English.
And we're back. Final part of our Learning English deep dive.
You know, going through all this, I'm actually kind of pumped up. This guide, it's not just theory. It's really practical stuff.
Yeah, it gives you the tools, but then it shows you how to use them, which is awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I got to ask, how do we take all this and make it a reality? Life gets busy, you know?
I hear you. And the guide gets into that too. They're big on setting realistic goals.
Okay, so don't bite off more than you can chew.
Right. And they're all about creating a study plan, but like a personalized one.
A plan that fits, your life, your schedule.
Exactly. Start by figuring out what you're already good at and where you struggle.
So, I'm pretty decent at reading, but listening, oof, that's my weak spot.
Then you'd focus your plan on boosting those listening skills, more movies with subtitles, maybe podcasts, that kind of thing.
Tailor-made learning. I like it.
Yeah.
But even with the perfect plan, you got to stick with it, right?
Consistency is key, they say. Little by little, day by day.
It's like working out, right? You don't get ripped by going to the gym once.
Perfect comparison. It's about building those habits, making it a part of your routine.
Yeah.
And they talk about finding ways to keep it fun.
Because if it's a drag, you're not going to do it.
Exactly. So build in activities you actually enjoy, whether it's music, movies, whatever gets you going.
Make it a treat, not a chore. But let's be real, even with all that, there are going to be times when it's tough.
Oh, for sure. Language learning, it's got its bumps in the road.
What kind of things does the guide warn us about?
The usual suspects, forgetting words, getting tripped up by grammar, those moments of self-doubt.
Yeah, that inner critic can be loud.
But the guide says, hey, these are all normal parts of the process.
Don't let them stop you.
Exactly. There are actually opportunities to learn and grow.
Okay, so mindset shift. Challenges are our friends.
In a way, yeah. And they give you concrete ways to deal with them. Forgetting words, spaced repetition, flashcards, overwhelmed by grammar. Break it down into smaller bites.
Don't try to swallow the whole thing at once.
Exactly. And when you start doubting yourself, remember why you started learning in the first place. Celebrate those small wins along the way.
It's a journey, not a race. I'm really glad we did this deep dive. It's not just about learning English, it's about learning how to learn,
I agree. It's given me a fresh perspective, that's for sure.
And as we wrap things up here, I want to leave everyone with something to think about. Now that we've gone through all this, what part of learning English are you most excited to tackle? What goals are you going to set for yourself?
Think about it. How are you going to make this happen?
Learning a new language, it's a gift, It opens up a whole world of possibilities. Embrace the challenge, enjoy the ride, and never stop exploring. Keep that language fire burning.